Hello, everybody. Welcome to On the Homefront. I'm John Murphy. Very happy to share some time with you once again. You might be catching us live on Wednesdays at 5 o'clock on WILI. That's AM 1400 and 95.3 on the FM. We're also on WICH covering Norwich and New London, and WECS as well. We have a YouTube channel. If you go to the WILI radio YouTube channel, a whole lot of our programs have playlists. So if you ever miss a show, they're all available for you 24/7. Our program today is going to end a little early for Red Sox coverage, so we're going to focus on 2 segments today rather than 3. After our break, we'll come back and talk about individual freedom and the right to die. There's a national movement that's been happening for many years to change some national laws that allow people more freedom of choice when those times come at the end of life. There's an organization called Death with Dignity. We're going to have Geoff Sugarman with us talking about national efforts and national legal changes. But on the other side of the life cycle, I'm very happy to begin the show today with students from Eastern Connecticut State University. They are here to talk about journalism and the future of the field during a time of decline when people are realizing how important local news is. The industry is struggling with finding new people for the future of the industry. And we started a program this past semester at Eastern with the Connecticut Student Journalism Collaborative, and it's a way to get students published in professional media and to help them advance their careers in journalism. So this semester I set up a team project. Several students responded. 3 of them are here today, and we're going to share their stories for others to follow in the future as this effort to bring local journalism to Eastern expands, and it's all from the viewpoint and concerns of students. So I want to begin by thanking our guests for being here today and for all the work they did this semester. Sitting next to me is Jared Tofil. He's a senior finishing up his time at Eastern. Next to Jared is Ananya Patel. She's a junior. And next to her is Jason Kohl, who's also a junior. And they work with me all semester at meetings outside of regular classes because they really wanted to try to get involved with storytelling. So that's why we're here, and I want to try to share this story with others to encourage other students to try this. So thank you all, and I guess Ananya, you might start us off by saying what got you to join the project? What brought you to the team?
Right. So at the end of the semester in the fall, I saw the email that was sent out to the student body.
Okay.
And in the fall, I had been involved with the campus's ETV News, the club.
That's right.
And I thought that this would be a perfect opportunity to continue my work with journalism on campus. And so I did take a screenshot and send it to Jared because I know he's a communications major, and I know that he's also a part of ETV. And I was like, hey, I feel like this would be a good opportunity to kind of lead off after ETV.
Right. So, Jared, how about you? How did you decide to jump in?
Well, I guess she kind of hinted it to she sent me a screenshot of the email, and on that email, that's where I found, there's this new journalism thing coming up with its, student stories. And I was like, oh, this sounds like a lot of fun, something that could help me in the future, and I jumped right on it, so yeah.
Okay. And Jason, how about you?
So I recently just started Eastern Connecticut State University in the fall semester. I got interested in ETV News, and I quite couldn't do that in the spring semester, so that's when I really joined this journalism collaborative. I major in political science, and I minor in communication, so I wanted to figure out and find some new networking skills and more talent elsewhere, and I hope to find that Willimantic.
Yeah. I also want to mention Christopher Cruz, who's not here with us today. He's a senior who's graduating. He also contributed a written piece to this effort as well. We ended up with a few print pieces and a nice media piece as well. And they'll be shared and archived on the web as well for future people to follow. So this is kind of how this adventure began, and we'll try to keep this going each semester. And I'm going to try to get more faculty to integrate their classwork and their projects with storytelling. So maybe with the time that we have, you could each share what topics you decided to pursue and how you went about the process of storytelling itself. You know, what tools you use and how you work together.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. Yeah, so the story that I decided to do was the media/video piece. It came out to be about three minutes long, and the story was on immigration and ICE. Basically being allowed to start coming onto college campuses, to schools, to those places they usually were not allowed to. And I honed in on this story just because I thought it was something very, very deep and very very important issue, as well as connecting it to something the new president at the campus said at the beginning of the semester about the policy changes. And I was like, obviously not everyone checks the emails that it was sent over email. So
Sure.
if you have video pieces that people could watch and get all the information that they need on, it would be very helpful for them. So I was like, yeah, let's get a video piece going on those
Right.
issues.
So that took a lot more hands-on work in terms of actual production and shooting video. And I know
Yeah.
that you helped with some voiceover
Yes.
and some writing.
Yeah.
So how did you put the story together in pieces?
Right.
Yeah.
So, again, so Jared had this story. It was kind of my face and voice on it. So he came to me with the script that he wanted me to do, like, the voiceover for, and then also, what are the videos called when you, like, do it?
Video?
No, not the
Video.
voiceovers.
What do you mean? Oh, stand-ups.
Yes. So the
stand-ups
stand-ups
would
and the voiceovers were
It's
me.
the lingo.
Yeah, I don't know. So
That's
yeah,
okay.
I'm the only one who's not a communications major, so I'm kind of lost on the jargon for the major. But yeah, so we did some of the
Stand-ups.
The stand-ups. I did some of the stand-ups on campus with, like, We Picked a Good Day. And for the voiceovers, I was kind of just in my room, like, quiet, so, like, the voice wouldn't kind of
Yeah, had good voice quality.
yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, and I just did it on my notes app, and the voiceovers, and I would, like, listen back to it, and I would kind of try to leave in, like, notes, be like, hey, I'm gonna redo that, or I would cut it here, and I tried to listen to it before sending it back to him, so that way he could also kind of just listen in instead of, like, having to go back and play, like, where to cut or, like, edit.
Oh, yeah. When you see a finished story, people don't always know how many pieces are linked together there to make it work and flow well. But Jason, let's bring you in too, because you decided to work on 2 print stories with more of a writing focus. So, where did you journey?
Okay, so I wanted to take my political science major, my political science major, my communications minor, and use that to my ability to learn more about the legislative process and the Connecticut General Assembly and what was happening there. Also seeing ETV and how important having film is for people to graduate in Connecticut and then live in Connecticut afterwards with communications majors. I saw how important that was. So I wanted to learn more about the tax credit at the state level that was most likely going to be lowered, and that would have that would hurt businesses. So I followed that. And
Could you describe what the tax credit is and why some
course.
people are very worried about that?
So Connecticut currently offers a 30% digital media and motion picture tax credit on qualifying production incurred in state, including equipment and post-production, set design, and wages. And the proposed new credit would it would be 15% lower. It would be 15% for small companies, and any company that had a $10 million expenditure would be able to keep the same tax credit, but lower in smaller businesses or startups would be
Right.
seeing a decrease in their tax credit.
Okay. So that was kind of a media industry article.
Absolutely.
And the other one had to do with the Green Frog Film Festival, with the faculty member Brian Day put this thing together. I'm wearing their shirt today because this was a fabulous international film festival on campus about sustainability and the environment. And you wrote a piece about that.
I did. I also took script writing this semester with Professor Day, so that's how I originally heard about that.
Right.
But writing this tax incentive story, it was a little out of our student article circle, so I did want to kind of come back to our roots and why we actually have this journalism project. So I was happy to write about the first Green Frog Film Festival, which I hear was a good success.
Yeah. They had, I think, submissions from over 40 countries. They showed quite a few. It was a great programming success, and they're going to try to keep it going in the future. So we have a couple of minutes left, and perhaps you could share any thoughts with perhaps students or faculty who are watching this and they're figuring out, well, how could I connect to journalism and storytelling in a better way? What advice would you give students or faculty to help with this kind of effort that would make it easier for you to do more?
I think that next semester or starting next semester or something, I think definitely there should be a class. I know we took time out of our class to dedicate to this project,
Yes.
but I think that if there were a class that would help students kind of be a part of this project, it would bring in a lot more stories and a lot more like effort to this project, because students would have like dedicated time in the semester to give to this like
Yes, that's true.
collaborative.
Many of the collaborative members are full-time journalism faculty. Eastern has a program on new media that I think you're taking now, or you took before with Peter Wappy,
Yeah.
right?
Emerging media reporting, yeah.
Right. So that's one of the courses. Are there other courses that might connect to this work that students could learn and prepare?
So this one's more towards like your senior year if you're a communications major, and it's the MMJ with Professor Utterback. So that's like it's that class. There's not a lot of writing based. It's all video, where you start off with like filming like a VO, VOSA, and then get up to like more 5-minute long packages.
Right, but that means
So-
you've done other media work before.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but that's longer video pieces. But outside of that class, which you can't take till senior year, and then obviously Peter's class, which is just you take it one semester and boom, it's gone. There's not really a lot of opportunities to go in inside class wise, do some writing, do some video,
Right.
or anything like that.
Yeah. Do you have a sense that more students are thinking about the impact of journalism, and that it's something that maybe we've either taken for granted or not fully realized the impact on everyday life? They think, well, it's just general information and it's not really about me. Or is that too generalistic?
I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of in the middle. There are some people who don't care about the news as much anymore, or they're like, I don't know, indifferent to it. But then there's also like the other side of the spectrum where we wish that journalism had the same kind of meaning to it as it did before. I know, especially now with like things that are considered journalism, but it's all basically just fake news or like social media or like celebrity gossip. I think
Yeah.
we need to come back to like real journalism that like shares stories about like things happening local, state, national, international. And then I would like to add to like the question you asked before about the school. I think that it would help if I currently believe there is no journalism major or minor at Eastern.
Well, in previous years, under a different academic
Yeah.
structure, there was a sequence for journalism, but the school had to merge many programs, and so
Yeah.
and also at the time too, enrollment was lower.
Yeah.
For a while, the interest in journalism by students it kind of dipped for a while.
Yeah.
And they were unsure of how far to go with it. But I know you're showing interest now, and other schools are struggling now because the industry needs new talent.
Yeah.
It needs new writers, and this is where they can come from.
And
Yeah.
so I think that it would be great if in the future we were able to bring that back, at least a minor, because I know, like, so right now I'm a criminology and sociology double major with a minor in pre-law,
Right.
and I had considered journalism for a long time, and I wish that I were able to add it as at least like a minor to my degree.
Yeah.
I think it would teach me skills. And then again, like, if I'm not a communications major, I'm not, like, able to take those classes without taking Com 100 and, like, working my way up to those 200, 300, 400 level courses. And I think that if there was a dedicated minor, it would be much easier for students who are, at least interested or want to see, like, work on it as a hobby or, like, a separate passion of theirs to work on it.
But just a second track, Well, I really want to thank you for all the work you did this semester to kind of launch this project. I want to mention again their names. Sitting next to me is Jared Tofil, and then Ananya Patel and Jason Kohl. It's been a lot of fun to work with you, and you really opened the door. And I'll be sharing this with other students and faculty to figure out where we can go with this appropriately to open the door for more of the work. Certainly, local news needs a lot of support these days, and that's part of the future of the journalism. So thanks again for being here today. Wish you, a good year ahead.
Thank you.
All right. Take care of yourselves. Don't go away. So we'll take a few short breaks, and we'll come right back. Stay with us. Okay, folks, we're back live here on the Homefront. John Murphy, very happy to be sharing some time with you today. By the way, if you'd like to join us in the studio to share your good news, just use an email. We'll schedule a visit, and it's very easy to get you here to share your good news. John@humanartsmedia.com. Right now, I'm very happy to share the phones with Geoff Sugarman. He is from Connecticut originally, but right now he comes to us from the West Coast in Oregon. He's the National Campaign Strategist for Death with Dignity. Our theme today is one of a couple of programs that we're going to do you is about the individual freedom to choose how you're going to end your time in this world. It's a big legal challenge across the country, and you're surprising how many times people are having a hard time having their basic wishes face serious obstacles. So Geoff is here to talk about their work at the national level and some current efforts underway to give people more freedom of choice. So Geoff, let me begin by thanking you for your good work and for being here today with us.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be on your show, John.
Okay, well, maybe one thing that we could do briefly in terms of the national focus is in terms of any current legislation that is pending. The session is kind of in limbo. It's in between right now. But are there any particular national efforts that you're most hopeful about at this time?
Well, the two biggest national efforts that are underway right now that are still in active legislative sessions are in New York, where we have passed the medical aid in dying bill out of the Assembly, and it is now sitting in the Senate Health Committee, and also in Massachusetts, where the bill is still alive and has had an initial hearing before the Joint Committee on Public Health and is awaiting their action further on. In addition, the state of Delaware has already passed the medical aid in dying law out of both its chambers, and it is right now awaiting the governor's signature, which we hear may happen as soon as next week.
Are you having any sense in recent years, with all the other social stress going on right now with the economy and how the whole political system is really not functioning well, so all these legal processes are compromised sometimes for issues that go way beyond the merits of the case? All these dynamics come into play that affect things, and I wondered, in this effort, are you finding more support overall, or is there more resistance, just in your overall reading of the tea leaves?
Well, I think in general, the public, whether you look at it state by state or on a national level, is certainly more supportive of medical aid in dying than they ever have been in the past. And consistently, polling will show that support among virtually every demographic is somewhere around 70% in most cases. In state legislatures, it has always been challenging to pass medical aid in dying laws. We have very strong opposition, most particularly from the Catholic Church, and they tend to have a fair amount of power in most legislative processes.
They do.
But what we're also seeing is that as we work with more legislators and they become really true champions of the bill, that we're seeing their ability to move legislation through their respective chambers is certainly helping us. And, you know, the other thing that we're also seeing is that in states you wouldn't necessarily expect to see medical aid in dying or progressive laws like this, Tennessee, Florida, some of the truly red, most conservative states, bills are being introduced in those states, and they're at least getting some consideration. They don't always pass. It takes 10 years or more sometimes to pass bills out of a legislative process. But the trend is moving in the right direction. And there's now somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 million people in the United States who live in states that have medical aid in dying laws.
75 out of 300 and some odd, 330. I'm glad you brought up the red states before, because one thing that's coming clear now is that a lot of people in the red states are going to be the most heavily impacted if Medicaid is destroyed or significantly reduced. And this compromises care for people at end of life. It compromises what they can do within their state or with their health plans or caregivers. Is there any sense that you're getting that the increasing pressure on people to resolve end-of-life medical issues as a large part of our population is aging, it becomes more prevalent? Is this helping people to face the facts and to accept things that maybe they were more easily dismissive before?
That's a really interesting way of phrasing that question, John. I think what one of the cornerstones of medical aid in dying laws is that the person who requests it has to be terminally ill with it and with a prognosis of being within 6 months of death. And that is typically the same standard that is used to qualify someone for hospice care or palliative care at the end of life. And at that point in their terminal disease, most of the treatment options that they might be able to consider have already been tried and have not succeeded. And so as you get to those very final stages at the end of life, care becomes less expensive. Hospice care is less expensive than experimental treatments. Palliative care or pain control is also less expensive than many types of medical care. And so it's less an issue of a financial burden at that point than it is of people losing control of their lives and their ability to live meaningfully in those final days of their life. So it's less about ending your life, and more about hastening your death. If that makes sense.
Yes, it does make sense. It's very poignant. It's very cold a way to look at it, but that's the reality. In a way, it's how you say goodbye and how much say you have. And I saw a recent update. You shared a strategic plan with me that was very helpful to understand a much bigger picture. Is with so many people worried about dementia, do you have to plan ahead that if your health care is not on an arc that is long-term, if part of it involves mental incapacity, how can you plan that in? And I know people are figuring that out now, but that's another whole layer on this, isn't it?
Yeah, in terms of medical aid in dying, you can't plan that in because a second cornerstone of the law is that you have to be mentally capable of making your own healthcare decision at that time that you're within 6 months of death and suffering from a terminal disease. People with dementia are not necessarily suffering from a terminal disease, although eventually, they will get to that point.
Right.
And they have lost the capacity to make their own healthcare decisions. And unfortunately, in this country, advanced directives or the ability to control what happens to you if you get into certain medical situations is a very mixed bag as you look at state by state, and not all states honor advanced directives. In fact, many of them just won't honor them. And so it is a slightly different issue than medical aid in dying for a terminally ill patient within 6 months of death. But it is one that certainly a lot of people are paying attention to. And it is one that is not easily solved by laws that, like the ones that we support.
Yes, it's very difficult, and trying to keep politics out can be very difficult today because that seems to be a strong polarity that people can exploit. If they disagree, they find new ways to disagree beyond the merits of the argument. It gets really kind of manipulative, I guess, but that's my judgment call. But, the Catholic Church has a real complicated history of contradictions of preaching and practicing, and the whole idea of individual freedom, it seems to go away if somebody else can tell you how you can die and they wear a certain outfit. Other churches do not have the same approach. And I guess it's a delicate thing to get into in the airwaves because it's so loaded today, but people are worried about freedom in religion. Is it, freedom from or freedom to? And how do you walk these waters? Because it's very difficult to not be labeled prematurely when people really want to get to the heart of it and accept truth when it's hard and you don't want to escape.
Well, one of the ways that we addressed this way back in 1994 when we ran the very first campaign in Oregon, and I was a part of that campaign, is that we determined that, the patient had to be in control of the process and the patient had to be the one making the decisions, and that the process was completely voluntary. And that goes as far as allowing any medical professional or any hospital organization or any pharmacist or anybody who could be involved on the medical side of this medical aid in dying process has the ability to opt out for any reason. And so it really, that's how we established the process, and that's been followed in all 10, now 11 states that have passed it. And it is a way of ensuring that both the patient is acting voluntarily and anybody in the medical profession who might be asked to be involved has the ability to opt out for any reason without any sanctions or any problems whatsoever. So that's how we approach that issue. If somebody wants to opt out and doesn't feel comfortable for religious reasons or moral reasons or whatever reason they might have, that's certainly their opportunity and their option, and the same should go for patients who choose to use this option as well.
Well, that kind of defines a line where I guess religious freedom can begin or end, or however you use the word religious. It's your freedom, not someone else's, and that's what you're trying to honor in this. Are you overall optimistic? I mean, you've been at this for a while now. And by the way, you're from the Nutmeg State, so it's nice to have you back on the airwaves here in Connecticut.
Thank you. I grew up in West Hartford. Really had a great childhood there and loved Connecticut and sometimes wish I was not on the other side of the country these days.
Yeah, well, I came here from New York many years ago and fell in love with the area too. But I guess when people look at this issue, it's so difficult that they don't stay too long, and it gets to be uncomfortable until life forces it. Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. But what keeps you at it? What's the optimism that keeps people in the movement keeping forward when there are still obstacles?
I've been a political consultant for 40 years. I've worked on many different issues, and this is really one of the very first that I began to work on, and it is clearly the last one that I'm working on these days. And for me, I think what keeps me involved in this is the knowledge that that everybody is affected by these laws. Everybody is going to die, and there's no way to escape that. And for us to be able to provide an avenue for people to be able to control their own end-of-life decisions and die the way they want to die is just, to me, one of those fundamental issues that will never go away. It's not a tax and spend issue. It's really an issue that strikes at the heart of every single person who's going to face dying at some point in their life.
Yeah. Well, I really commend you for the good work, and I want to keep our conversation going occasionally during the year. I do this with other issues. There's one on local health care. We're tracking the growth of tenant unions. So some issues are worth staying with over time as progress happens. And I just want to mention the website, deathwithdignity.org. If somebody were to visit briefly before we close, Geoff, could you tell us what they would find there to become better informed and maybe better to think through their personal situations?
Yeah, one of the things that we have is a map of the entire country that will essentially, you can click on any state and you can see exactly what's happening in that state, whether there's been legislation introduced, where it's at in the process. We have another section that essentially has all of the extensive research that has been done on medical aid and dying over the last 30 years, from publications like the New England Journal of Medicine and Oncology Today, and peer-reviewed studies that really look at the issues that come up in legislative debates and give you a really good understanding of what the science and what the facts are about medical aid and dying. Those are two of the sections. We also have a story section where you can see people who have chosen this decision, who have been willing to come forward, or family members who have walked with a loved one as they've gone through this decision. So you can see the very personal stories and the very personal ways people have handled dying, utilizing medical aid and dying, or in some cases dying without being able to use the law because they live in a state where it's not legal.
Yeah, just the power of a simple story is very immense, and it's very nice that you make these things available. The website, again, is deathwithdignity.org. So, Geoff Sugarman, I want to thank you for taking some time to be with us today. I wish you well over the summer, and we'll hopefully stay in touch again in the fall. Or always, the door is open. If you have news to share, you're always welcome.
John, thank you for the opportunity.
Take care. All right, be well. Okay, well, that's how we're going to wrap up. Now, I got just about a minute to go, and I want to thank you all for joining us. If you want to go to the WILI YouTube channel, a lot of our shows here are available there 24/7. If you want to join us, the door is open to you, john@humanartsmedia.com. We'll be here all summer long sharing stories. Don't forget, this Thursday is, could I have my phone real quick? This Thursday is, of course, the first third Thursday. Okay, so please kick off a great season. And before I go, I have to mention one more quick thing. Joe Malinowski sent me a last-minute text today, and he has a last-minute performance with Caroline Davis and Greg Conti this Saturday at 2 o'clock at the Willimantic Records, right a few blocks away from us at 34 North Street. Joe has live music there all the time. Caroline Davis, Greg Conti, 2 o'clock this Saturday. And we'll see you all next week. Go Red Sox.